Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 50th Curiosity Talk. Thank you so much for being here. We have a very exciting discussion up ahead with 5 eminent speakers on this panel. We are going to begin with a short video about the talks that we've had till date. Curiosity Talks is just one in a bouquet of offerings that we bring to our community of more than 100,000 members.
How easy is it to find your purpose when you're in your 60s or 70s? Finding your purpose when you're younger and doing something about it versus either refinding it or finding it or figuring things out, because that's the audience that we have at Wisdom Circle.
Every meaningful journey begins with a single conversation. A conversation that sparks an idea, a question that ignites curiosity, a story that changes the way we think. In this short video, we can see the contributors who made this series possible. I want to begin by expressing thanks to the idea man, our founder Neeraj Sagar, for believing in this initiative from the very beginning and for having faith in us to nurture it and carry it forward. On the 12th of October 2023, the very first Curiosity Talk began with a simple belief that every individual has a story worth sharing and every listener has something new to discover. Over the past 2.5 years, Curiosity Talks have been all of these and more. A place where experience has met inquiry, where wisdom has been shared generously, and where people from diverse backgrounds have come together to learn, reflect, and grow. Today, as we celebrate our 50th Curiosity Talk, we pause for a moment to reflect on a journey filled with learning, inspiration, meaningful conversations, and above all, gratitude. First, our heartfelt thanks to Wisdom Circle for creating a platform where wisdom is valued, voices are heard, and lifelong learning continues to flourish. To the speakers who have joined us, we offer our deepest appreciation. Each time we reached out with an invitation, you responded with enthusiasm and generosity. And last but not least, thanks to our audience, the true heartbeat of this series. Thank you for showing up time after time. Thank you for your thoughtful questions, your active participation, your encouragement, and your valuable feedback. Your curiosity transformed these sessions from presentations into conversations, from events into a thriving community, and from individual talks into a shared journey of learning. We invite you to join us in acknowledging and celebrating each one of them. So here's to curiosity, here's to wisdom, here's to community, and maybe here's to the next 50 Curiosity Talks. All right. Good evening and welcome to EarthWise, Wisdom Shaping Sustainable Futures. When we hear the word sustainability, we often think of climate change, renewable energy, or conservation. But sustainability is really about something much deeper: stewardship. Stewardship is the responsibility to care for what has been entrusted to us: our land, our water, our communities, our resources, and ultimately the future of generations who will inherit the world we leave behind. Today, our distinguished panelists bring perspectives from agriculture, food systems, technology, development, and the built environment. Together, we'll explore how stewardship can move from an abstract ideal to practical action in our homes, organizations, communities, and industries. Let me tell you about the eminent panel we have here today before they will introduce themselves. Afra Parveen from Singapore is a sustainability practitioner and systems thinker who brings together science, policy, business, and communities to drive regenerative solutions and capital for climate solutions. Sangeeta Sharma from Bangalore, India, is an acclaimed solution provider in regenerative agriculture and a recognized seed guardian of India who champions democratic food systems, fusing ancestral wisdom with scalable food forest models and an autonomous seed bank to drive grassroots climate resilience. Vaishnavi Kalzumkar from Mumbai, India is an architect and academician specializing in environmental architecture, environmental education. And through teaching, research, and professional practice, she advocates for integrating ecological principles into architecture and the urban development. Harish Methil from Singapore is a purpose-driven board director and advisor, helping businesses strategize and incorporate sustainability as a core theme, industry focus being food chain. Mark Trelevan from Bali, Indonesia, brings over 40 years of technology solutions from Toronto to New York to Frankfurt, Singapore, and now Indonesia and ASEAN. He spent his career bridging the gap between powerful, sophisticated systems like cloud, mobile, e-com, and now blockchain and AI to build practical, human-centered solutions that we need to build a more resilient future. So at this point, I'm going to ask all of you to tell us a little more about how you transitioned from probably a corporate life or any other sector to a life in sustainability and making your work one about the environment. So I think let me start with the youngest. So I will start with Afra.
Hey, Swati, thank you so much for introducing all of us. Firstly, thank you to the Wisdom Circle for inviting me to be a part of this very special occasion. I think it's quite a testament to how much has been achieved with the 50th edition of Curiosity Talks. I'm Afra, and I'm based in Singapore, and I'm actively building the future of our food systems and focusing on impact-driven ventures. So when I first started out in sustainability and environment, I was 16. So I really loved nature a lot and I really loved animals. So I was discussing with my parents, like, how do I get started on this? Because it's not quite a industry in Singapore at that point of time. And I joined the zoo as a conservation ambassador. And then within 1 year, I told them I want to be a zookeeper because, I wanted to be a vet and I want to save the animals. And yeah, I got started in there, took care of orangutans, different primates and birds. And from there, I met a lot of horticulturists, conservationists, people from different industries. So that got me started. And then I spent a lot of my early years trying to survive the exams in Singapore. Before eventually ending up, in agricultural space, wastewater and global food systems. So currently I'm focusing on regenerative agricultural solutions, sustainability and climate solution startups, and moving capital across to these solutions. So feel free to approach me after this panel or connect with me over LinkedIn. Happy to chat more on this.
Thank you, Afra. Can I invite Sangeeta?
Namaskar, everyone, and thank you, Swati, for inviting me to contribute to Wisdom Circle's monumental milestone. The internet we're using right now moves in milliseconds, but the earth under our feet moves in seasons. 26 years ago, I transitioned from corporate affairs to agriculture affairs. The shift triggered a fundamental awakening. I love food. But why was my gut failing me? Why was I ingesting pesticide-laden food, and where did the food equation go wrong? So in 2001, when I relocated in search of answers, I traveled the length and breadth of rural India only to witness a shattering reality that farmers had lost access to their seeds, trapped in economic woes, leading to devastating deaths and suicides. With no background in science nor in agriculture, I knew I had to educate myself on how to grow my food sustainably. Food is very sacred to me. And this compelled me to its source, seed. The origin of our food chain, which is beautifully described in our Vedic agriculture scriptures, Aham Bijam, Annahi Purna Brahma. I am the seed, and seed is the creation of the cosmos. Annadana, my non-profit trust, was born to this faith. This mission taught me a non-negotiable truth. The seed is the foundation of all sustainability, and the soil is an expectant mother into which you feed nutrients, not harsh chemicals. We apply the ancestral wisdom alongside inclusive, non-corrosive technology because seeing is believing. And in Bengaluru city, our 2-acre flagship farm, which I invite you all to, has over 22,000 varieties of diversity coexisting with a seed bank to its core. So this success led to the expansion into a drought-abandoned land in the Western Ghats. Now, to achieve true seed and food autonomy, we brought the entire ambit of regenerative agriculture under one umbrella, producing 22 publications and 14 films on seed saving and soil health. We are autonomous and we receive no funding because I always tell my team that we must not be begging for funding. So we started creating our own knowledge exchange platforms. Like, we created the sustainable thinking programs like Soil to Seed to Plate, Farm Trails, sharing learning with farming communities and home gardeners to the scientists and policymakers. These living initiatives, these are living field initiatives. Progressive farmers trained by Annadana have taken a leap of faith to reject chemical dependency, replicate our scalable models, and become the true custodians of their seed legacy. They prove a simple truth. Healthy soil leads to healthy seeds. Healthy seeds, healthy plants, and healthy us. Consider this, a single heirloom carrot seed produces around 200,000 seeds. How then can we be food insecure? This decades-long journey recently came a full circle when my entire body of work was gifted back to my ancestral roots in Punjab. Seeds don't belong to Annadana. They are the legacy of our farmers. As solution providers, we have proven that we can transform any soil, saline, corrosive, barren, pesticide-laden, into thriving food forests, demonstrating every single model that if we are seed secure, we are food secure. Thank you. You're more than welcome to visit us.
Thank you, Sangeeta. At the risk of being gender biased, I'm going to ask Vaishnavi to go next.
To begin with, I thank Wisdom Circle and Swati to take this initiative and invite us all over here. To begin with, I am an architect by profession, and I believe architecture is definitely surrounded with development, and development is at a cost. And this development, I was very much pro development in my initial years, and I always believed that yes, infrastructure is needed, buildings are needed, and we have to destroy something to build something for people. So this was the initial in my practice, and even while choosing materials and also while designing. Of course, nature we love to go to nature, all those attributes were there, but the perspective was not clear. But when I happened to meet right people at right time, I did my master's in environmental architecture at a very late age, and I met very good people during my education. Also, when I happened to meet certain people in my life they were very young to me, but I mean they have learned so many things from them, and which is in Pune. That it is the course name is Management of Sustainable Resources, and it is run by Ecological Society. It really opened my mind, and of course my entire perspective changed 180 degrees. What happened here was the people we interacted with, who actually showed us the right path. They actually showed us a scientific way of understanding nature, and this is where it became very different from others. And so from that time, we also went for a lot of field work in various type of ecosystems. For example, wetland ecosystems, that we went to Konkan area. For forest ecosystems, we went to north side in the Uttarakhand, and like as a mountainous ecosystem. And for grassland ecosystem, we went to one place in Maharashtra, which was drought prone area, and how people have really encountered the drought kind of that region into a very kind of a greener pastures over there. Why the entire village has come as a kind of a unit, the village united for this particular work. So all these things I have seen, and then I thought architecture can really relate to these things very well. And because since I'm also academician, I thought that in new students who are coming to me and who I'm guiding for different years, they should be really engaged in this kind of understanding. And this is where my journey began. And now also I am a part of one group, a collective, which is also called as the Untamed, We Want the Untamed Earth, where we are a people of 7 to 8 enthusiasts. What we do is we advocate and we create certain events where common people are engaged with. Like even children, we have different themes for our seminars, webinars. During COVID times, we also did webinars, but otherwise we actually enjoy doing seminars, meeting people, and actually calling out experts. Even we called out one doctor who had gone to Antarctica and stayed for a long time there. And also we did once a very nice kind of a session, event at Mumbai only for 2 days, which revolved around oceans, the life inside the ocean, above the ocean, and also around the ocean. It was a very insightful kind of a seminar, and we all enjoyed it. People also enjoyed attending it. So this is how briefly I can introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. Now it's a toss-up between Harish and Mark. So I'll leave it to you all.
Go, Mark. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Swati. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Wisdom Circle, for having me. As briefed by Swati, I currently serve on the board of a multinational in the agri-food sector as a non-executive independent director. Besides that, I'm also engaged as a consultant, mainly focusing on SMEs and MSMEs, and clearly helping them to strategize business or redesign business models, or sometimes even go to market and operational excellence. So when small businesses have multiple kind of needs, so that sort of cater to most of that, having managed businesses of significant size. My work mainly happens through an organization called IPI, which is a subsidiary of Enterprise Singapore. So it's more of a giving back kind of a work rather than a money-making machine, so that I'm almost on a full-time basis, working on these types of projects. Okay, prior to that, I had the privilege of managing two businesses, both as CEO, one at a global scale and the other at an APAC regional level. And from an industry perspective, I crossed over a few actually, but the path that I have tracked is mainly, even having my own life before I started my professional life, is actually from farm. And I worked through the chain, actually, through the food chain. So I've come, going through the industrial, the agricultural inputs, agri-food, human food, food safety and security sort of stuff. I would call myself a food chain person, actually, for that reason. Though I have worked a bit in chemicals and other ingredient stuff also. All right, so I want to connect myself in terms of the impact, and how I'm going to do this is it's through my personal experience, obviously. And so, as a young person who just started my career in work, and I went for my first holiday back home, I happened to come across our neighbor, and the family was in our place, and I happened to listen to the parents talking to my mom. Well, the son got admission in a very good university for a master's program in applied science, and they have decided not to send him because they didn't have the money. So I heard this, and out of pure sympathy, at that point in time, I decided to help the kid, and then successfully, he became a great person, professionally, personally. Well, this happened, but I met him after about 10 or 15 years on another occasion when because his life moved on, I moved on, and I went back home for another vacation. Then what I see is not just the person, but the entire family that he is, no, sort of he's growing up, and the entire family, their living standards and their general well-being has all been uplifted by that one person who made a super impact. Now, that is an eye-opener for me. What I basically try to help as a sympathy, I realized that was an impact that I made, that decision that I made had a major impact on a family. And that was positive. Also, the thoughts continued, and as and when we get, me and my wife, we both actually definitely work through a variety of stuff and help people all throughout, whether it is financially. But we focus a lot on education, especially because we always believed in taking a man how to fish rather woman to how to fish rather than giving the fish, right? So that's been our focus. Now, I want to now go fast forward, and I want to talk about my last work where I was deeply involved as a steward of CSR activities, because being a CEO, I'm also steward of CSR activities in the business. So we contributed significantly. And of course, we contributed to the local community, as well as we did a couple of projects associated with schools. And then as a part of that, they invited me to be, part of the inaugural committee of those particular program. And what really what I would call the tipping point in my life was that smile and happiness and the air of optimism that I saw in the faces of students, the parents, and the local community. That what actually I would call the tipping point in my life in terms of making a major decision in my life. That whatever you do, I mean, it's not about profit all the time in your life. It's also about what good or what an impact that it can create to the humanity and to the community, by and large. So when I left my corporate life, it's about 5 years back, I continued to do my pro bono work, again, in the area of education, including mentoring young budding entrepreneurs and startups, mainly. Currently, I'm involved with the National University of Singapore, facilitating entrepreneurship workshops, mentoring startups, and I'm also an advisor on Themasek's Trust Co-Access Advisory Program, again, advising impact-driven startups. So I've just shifted gears here from the environmental aspect we talked so far into societal aspect. I'll leave it to you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I mean, for coming over and wanting to participate and be a part of this program. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Harsh. Nice intro, or hard to follow all of y'all. So anyway, I also want to thank Wisdom Circle and Swati for, really shepherding the panelists and the structure of today. I hope we have a great opportunity to discover each other's curiosities and wisdom. So great work. Mark Trelevin, 40 years in IT, which is kind of crazy, but I've always been paid to be the guy who figures things out. And it's been a ultimate ride, I would say. First couple of years we're just building my family and things like that. I'm not going to go through a long thing, but I think it was about 10 years into my career. I was lucky enough to be in a large organization, management consulting firm, and I had a weekend or something that I could do some pro bono. So Care Canada, which is in Toronto, was a small organization spin-off from Care International, and they were putting together a container full of basically an emergency lab and deployment center in a container, and they were buying computers, and I had a chance to kind of quickly review the shipping list, and I saw that something that should have cost around $400, $500 at the most, was being charged at $5,000. And I called up, and I knew some people in that legacy computer company in Canada. And I said, what is the deal? These aren't hardened. They're not, nuclear ready or anything like that. This is just a laptop or just a computer. What are you doing? Oh, well, that's what they said I could charge. And it was just like the worst, sort of light bulb going off that that's not going to happen on my watch. Now, I didn't shift right then. Fast forward about 20 years. Actually, no, I do want to talk about something. Harsh, you mentioned something that was really interesting to me, and I want to spin up this project again. Had a young kid named Dimitri. He borrowed his sister's, whatever iMac, one of those pink ones, and he was borrowing it to learn how to code. And I said, that's not really cool. You're sharp. Let's go. And so I bought him a computer, but it was like $1,500. And I said, you give me 100 hours of your labor and work. And I taught him how to do websites. He's like my HTML web manager and things like that. And he's 16. So anyway, obviously I got the 100 hours, but he got a very quick education in kind of responsibility management. And he's had 3 startups in Brooklyn, and he's living in San Francisco now. So similar kind of quick story. I love that. And I really want to crank up again the Dimitri project. The young man was named Dimitri. So I had a chance during COVID to speak with some old friends in Singapore and in Australia. And I was invited in sort of given a role of CTO of creating a new ERP for all of the UN SDGs and all like actually helping people get money. And then when they got that money to keep reporting and operationalize it. So really moving away from PDFs and Excel spreadsheet promises that you hear about once a year, at the annual report or something like that. So we spent 2-3 years, a couple $1 million that did peter out, but I'm not leaving. And I literally shifted from corporate kind of life and then consulting fractionally. So now I have about 10 clients as CTO and COO. And really 1.0 is meant for the impact space. So we're helping mission-led companies deliver what they need to do to exponentially explore their potential. I know those are big, long, silly words, but they kind of rhyme. And I love it. I think technology should be easy. Everything that has been solved before is still challenging people, especially in the, as I think one of the panelists said, without spending all your time begging for money. So some of the current projects I'm working on, clean drinking water for children up in the middle of Bali, which is a great one. Just did a massive project for digitizing data collection and all of their telling the truth, immutability on the blockchain of cleaning plastic out of the ocean. It's a smaller enough organization, but 50 million pounds is it is a drop in the ocean, but it's a pretty significant amount of waste removed. Got a lot of waste management projects in organics, plastic recovery, and e-waste. That was a new one. And yeah, I just came back from Jakarta. I'm super wiped. I had 4 days at the Global Sustainable Development Congress in Jakarta, which was a 3,000 person organization and tons of universities. So I got to meet really, really incredible, inspiring people like today. So I'm kind of talked out, but I'm also super excited to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's wonderful to get all your introductions, and I can see that we have so much of wisdom and so much of skill and talent on this panel. So I'm quickly going to jump in and begin by looking at the larger system that connects all of our areas. And so I'm going to, again, coincidentally, go to Afra first. So Afra, food, water, health, and the environment are deeply interconnected. And from your experiences, why is system thinking essential for solving today's sustainability challenges? And what happens when we address issues in isolation?
Sure, Sari. Yeah, seems like it's becoming a trend at this rate. In terms of all these challenges, they are quite multidisciplinary. So over the years, what I've noticed is that no sustainability challenge exists in isolation. Food security depends on healthy soil, and then healthy soil depends on water quality, and then water quality depends on public health, affects public health, and public health also affects economic resilience. But currently what we're seeing worldwide in all the institutions and governments is that they still operate in silos. So there's a lot of interdisciplinary panels that needs to be made. Governments and different sectors have to come together to work on these solutions. And you really have to think in the long term and involve different systems. So over my last role, I led business development in the APEC and MENA region for an environmental biotech company. So it spanned from Jordan, India, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, like Philippines, Singapore as well, like, and China and most of these agri countries. I've seen like how a decision made in one sector can create consequences in many other. So, for example, like, when I was working in Saudi Arabia with one of the largest agri producers, they're called Nadic, and then the other one, its big one, is called Almarai. So they are all among Middle East. So they house like around 150 to 200,000 cows now. So the excessive use of like antibiotics in agri space like contributes to like antimicrobial resistance in water systems. Then eventually that becomes a public health issue. And then we have the Ministry of Environment. Then we have all these regulators like, coming after all these agri producers and saying that, hey, how are you polluting like, the environment? But the thing is, this is again a corporate, you need to make money. If you're a business, you need to make money, so you need to find a way like, to reduce your expenses. So if you want the animals well, then you put whatever like in the soil, like, herbicide, pesticide, like, and for animals, antibiotics and a range of things. So we need to help leaders like, move beyond treating just symptoms and start addressing like root causes. So that will encourage like collaboration across sectors and disciplines. And it is quite essential if we want solutions that are truly like sustainable and scalable. So this is what we need to look at systems thinking. So not only the KPI and the ROI and that, which is quite important, but we need to look at systems. So that's going to last the change for the next decade and 20 years, 30 and 40.
I agree, Afra. If sustainability is a systems challenge, then technology has become one of the most powerful forces shaping those systems. So, Mark, let me bring you here into the conversation.
Great.
When we look at the maturity and adoption of sustainable technology, what decade of development are we currently in across Asia in general and Southeast Asia in particular? And also, can you then please tell us a little bit about your work for the ocean plastic crisis?
Sure. Thank you. And Afra, you're completely inspiring, and I have lots to talk about with you after the call too. Yeah, so I think what I've seen right now, like I hinted at before about PDFs and Excel spreadsheets, I think there's a real sticky, if it doesn't break or if it's worked last year, let's do it again this year concept happening. So I would say the decade that I'm barely early 2000s and honestly quite late 90s. It's been a bit of a shocker out here. And I know I'm not talking about like the garbage men who are or the sorting plastic at the landfill who are just writing on a piece of cardboard and that's the official weight of that plastic. I do have some pictures of that stuff. But even larger organizations are really stuck on their older databases, and it's very difficult to have a lot of change put in without a lot of fear and anxiety and thought about like probably an inaccurate assumption that it's going to cost millions and millions of dollars to make the change. So I think that's critical. I think the advent of the newer technologies has been really exciting. But again, I see the train moving fast and not having everybody on board, right? And I think that's something that I'm trying to demystify and make sure these things are understood, that the patterns of like automating something, connecting systems, and anticipating everyone's questions from the CEO to the shareholder to the family that you're affecting or the phone user. What are the questions that they're going to have, and how do you anticipate that by connecting those multidisciplinary, multi-disconnected systems that have just grown organically over years? Organic systems, but not organic at all, just metal and plastic. So anyway, yeah, I think I did want to share about the 7 years of collecting information, like weighing the scales, writing it down, doing hand addition to collect the information. And they're very proud of like the accuracy with which they've created that stuff. But if a corporate partner or someone who's donated $1 million asks them for a report, where's my $1 million gone? It would take like 3 people 2-3 months to generate a report that they feel, sort of satisfied and or confident in. So we took that down out of the equation. All of those people are, retooled and regrouped into business development and things because the corporate partners have a visibility into every pound of plastic that they were assigned, and they can check it independently auditable on the blockchain. So really, really interesting story. And we did it in 3 months, 3.5 months. So and for less than $100,000, I won't say their name, but yeah, it was real cheap. So I think we're in a realm of very quickly being able to have that kind of exponential, like light the fires under people in terms of reporting about their impact, telling the truth, and being very proud of what they've accomplished. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Technology really can accelerate progress. But first, I think we need to ask a more fundamental question. What kind of progress are we trying to achieve? And for that, I'm going to bring in Vaishnavi. When we speak of development, Vaishnavi, how is it connected to sustainability?
Sometimes, before I touch upon development and sustainability, I would like to touch upon what Brundtland Commission, okay, in our Commons Future, it has defined sustainable development. So let us go through the definition. I hope everybody is aware of it, but still, that development, how you define it is that development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So this is very important, that it's not only for today that we have to work on, but it has to be, consistent and nirantar, it has to continue going on and on and on for the future generations. And so before we begin with the understanding how development is contributing, I would like to mention here that we must be very sensitive to certain parameters which normally architectural manifestations or architectural interventions will normally destroy these parameters. Basically, conventionally, if you go through, I won't say every time, but many times. So what are the driving factors for during intervention? Ecology, geography, geology, climate, and mainly culture, because culture actually revolves around all these parameters. You cannot define culture without understanding the ecological sensitivity of the particular region. Also, the geography plays an important role. So how you really understand this, and then that's why I have just posted a few pictures here. I wanted to post a number of pictures, but I put not in one slide. So here are some ecosystems. So ecosystems are very important to understand, because ecosystem can be as large as a big wetland ecosystem or a mountainous ecosystem, but it can be so tiny and so minute as one tree. One tree also can carry its own ecosystem where it can flourish, and it can be a place for many living and non-living organisms. So that is why, if we have to understand this, then if the architectural interventions happen, then we can say fairly it can be a sustainable one. So above, if you could just focus on the upper right side picture, which is a kind of a schematic cross section of a river, where the aquatic zone is mentioned is the river bed ke saath mein river water level, and the adjoining parts which are shown are riparian zone areas, which are like a buffer zone, and they absorb the flood of the rivers at any point of time. And also the kind of vegetation which happens here is unique to that particular ecosystem and unique to the habitat which is existing there. And because the vegetation is unique, even the organisms who are thriving on those ecosystems are also unique to that particular area. If we understand this, and just go on the just picture below that, which is claiming as a riverfront development, river as a channel, and which is already concretizing all the edges. So edges are important. Edges of all the water bodies, however, lake, river, or even a small pond. The edges are so important that normally human intervention or the architectural intervention happens on the edges, and these edges have to be protected. So when we talk about sustainable development is to really focus on what we are exactly, where we are building on. If we respect the ecosystems, if we respect the particular natural resources which are existing and which you want to have, let us say, creating a footprint on those particular ecosystems, you have to understand what is the destruction which is going to happen and what particular, sometimes, some areas are in ecological sensitive zones too. And now you have to be very careful to have any intervention in those areas. So this is where, a careful study has to be done. We have all policies in place, we have all the clearances in which all these factors have to be taken into consideration, yet such development doesn't fall into a sustainable kind of a cliche word. So here, if you see, even the river bed is concretized and river is acting like a channel here now. So so this is one example I want to give you. And what happens due to this? Not only the infrastructure definitely has all concretization work which has happened. There is no absorption of the water or any kind of rainwater or any. There is no kind. Even there is a moisture, in the sense soil moisture is also not existing in the cities, in the urban core areas. What happens here then? Phenomenon like urban heat island effect takes place. So our interventions, they create these phenomena. What happens here, you must have all faced if you're living in a city. We face, if you compare our temperatures, air temperature and surface temperatures, if you compare it to the same region, but in the rural area, you will definitely find a difference of 5 to 7 degrees. I'm saying at a very lower temperature, it can be higher also. So that is the range that we face. And not only in the daytime, in the night time also, the concrete surfaces, the vertical walls and the surfaces and the horizontal terraces also, they give away the heat which is absorbed during the day. So this phenomenon continuously happens entire 24 hours, and that is why we don't get a relief nowadays. Earlier times, if you remember, in the night time, the temperatures used to cool down and we could get a little comfortable environment in the houses. So, but now it is not possible, and that's why, dependency on the artificial kind of, ventilation system is now very much into place. So all these aggregating to a certain level of disturbances, and then adding up to the carbon and everything, in the air. So what we can do here, if we have to really become very conscious citizen and not to accept anything which is not going with the nature, it is going against the nature. It is where you have to really think about it. Are we on the right track? Are we going to the right channel? Are we really thinking the right kind of perspective? And I have just given one river ka and one riverfront development ka example. There are hundreds and thousands of examples you can say, which are, even that wetland system, like mangroves are, so definitely nowadays, of course, we have understood the importance of mangroves. So why I have, taken example of ecosystems here. All the ecosystems, it can be any ecosystems, all the ecosystems give ecological services on which human and the natural systems, they function. And if we disturb any one of the ecosystems or any area where there is any disturbance, it affects the entire environment. So this is a cumulative process, and I hope we understand this and probably make good choices that will lead to sustainable development.
One of the clearest places where development, consumption, and sustainability intersect is in our food systems. So I'm going to bring in Harish to ask him, what is the impact of current food wastage, Harish, and how is it socially, economically, and environmentally?
Thank you. I'd like to narrate a small story, if you will, and that's the journey of a banana. All right. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but I have used this across the board, across the age group that I'm talking about, food wastages and food chain, and everybody has understood this so well, and it sort of stays with them. So I'm again using the same example, right? So look at the picture, and if it may not be very clear because it's a small slide, I mean, from where you're sitting, but let me take you through the simple steps of creating a banana on your dining table. Where does it come from? We have to obviously create a new farm, a banana farm. And what do we need to do here? We have to create a farm by disturbing the current ecosystem, clearly impacting the biodiversity, do deforestation, and maybe, and start. And clearly, we also need fertilizers. I believe one of the most under the manufacturing sectors. And in addition, we'll be using fresh water. Right. And again, I was told that about 70% of the fresh water is used for agriculture, both for the animal as well as the vegetarian food that we eat, vegetable food, and the grains that we eat. And then we have pesticides that we would use trucks to transfer where fossil fuel is used, driven, and creating pollution. Again, use of plastics and stickers and packaging until it reaches the shelf of a retailer. We as consumers typically would buy a bunch. I don't think I'll go to the supermarket to buy one banana and come back. I would typically buy a bunch, right? And then, you buy it typically for a week or maybe 3 or 4 days. And if you had observed and if you had experienced, and it's happened in my household also, we try not to do that, but by the end of that, 3 or 4 days, you would typically feel there's 1 or 2 bananas that's very likely unedible, or probably it's changed the color, it's too soft, it's too, overripe and sort of stuff, and we end up throwing it, right? And we definitely know what we're throwing away is money, because there's a lot of cost which has been absorbed while creating this particular fruit, which came to our table through the process of the entire chain that we just spoke about. However, I just want you to paint a bigger picture. This is where the systems thinking probably start thinking at a very basic level, right? It's three-dimensional. It's just not one-dimensional about cost and money. And we're talking about actually the negative externalities that has caused in creating that particular banana. And also the societal impact that what if this banana, if I could have saved and passed it to somebody who had not had a meal, which we know that currently today in the world, about 260 million people go to bed every day without a proper meal. So what I'm trying to say is that we just stop looking at a very simple picture of just say throw away a banana, maybe it's 50 cents or 1 rupee or 2 rupees. Look at the big picture. While we're creating all this, the greenhouse gas, again, we're talking about the food waste here, the greenhouse gas actually caused by the food waste is significant. I mean, we are underestimating, because mainly what comes out of the food waste is methane. And methane can be 100 times more potent than carbon dioxide that you talk about, because it's a greenhouse gas effect. Now, 100 times and over a period of time reduces, but again, the first 6 months is very intense as long as methane is there. And that causes, of course, the climate change. And there's inextricable link between climate change and our human health. Let's also look at the total food chain and the losses that's happening in the world today. And it's estimated to be, it's all data from the FAO. I mean, anybody interested can always look up. You can also look up at One World Meter. That also gives you a lot of data. Close to $1 trillion actually on an annual basis wasted on food. I mean, through food waste. And I believe about 13%, roughly about 13% gets lost in the farms. And about 19% actually gets sold the rest of the supply chain, including the processing and onto the table and also through the households. We can probably compute the cost of most of the expenses that we have, including the carbon tax today. For instance, there is a carbon tax most of the countries are now imposing to people, to the organizations that are creating pollution. But actually, there is no real calculation happening in terms of the disturbance that we have caused to the biodiversity, as well as spoiling the arable land and the amount of water that we use. And about, again, the pollution that we have caused through, probably pumping over fertilizing stuff, which goes into the oceans as well as into the land. So I think there's a huge lot of things which is happening around that. So I'm really wanting to bring everybody's attention to the whole process. Maybe a simple banana story, but it actually has a significant impact, not only on the cost, but also on the biodiversity, the land, the habitat, the ecosystem, the water, the electricity, the labor, materials, transportation, fuel, hunger, methane. You can name it actually. So please, my appeal, if you will, is don't throw away the banana. Make a banana shake if you can, or eat it much before it gets into form where we have to throw it away, or give it to somebody. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, it's just a narration of, I mean, it just want to bring to the picture in terms of the overall impact, right? I mean, there's quite a number of data available, and I thought this was a very sort of a simple way of explaining the whole, giving a bigger picture of how the entire value chain and the entire negative externalities, which we don't see, happens during the entire process, and so the appeal. Yep, that's it.
So while food waste occurs at the consumer end of the chain, as you have said, Harish, stewardship begins much earlier with the people who grow our food. And I want to bring in Sangeeta to ask her, how can we ensure that a sustainable future is not just a buzzword for policymakers, but a lived reality for the small-scale farmers who actually feed our world?
Yes, this is something very close to my heart, because to move sustainability from a policymaker's buzzword to a farmer's lived reality, who routinely push faulty agriculture frameworks without the input of farmer stalwarts. To cite a case, our agroecology knowledge hub is nationally recognized, but unfortunately, there's not one single model that has been replicated across India. Why? Because it brings in seed and food autonomy. We encourage farmers to stop waiting for top-down solutions and take charge of their seeds. Seed is the first source in the food chain, and eventually the farmer's expenses are reduced drastically. Indigenous heirloom seeds can reproduce, so farmers have no dependency on seed corporations, neither for their fertilizers or for their chemicals, or for their hybrid seeds or GM seeds. Now, we participated in each year we participate in seed exchange melas to be able to exchange heirloom indigenous seeds. And when the floods struck in Kerala, they realized that they had no seeds left, but Annadana had collected it. And we had safeguarded those varieties only to give it to them after the calamity, when the biodiversity chairperson of Kerala called us and said, we need seeds. And we said, here, we are gifting you back those seeds. 500,000 packets of seeds were gifted back during the flood calamity. Now, our philosophy at Annadana is simple. Do not wait for policy. Be the change on the ground, because seeing is believing. We don't just talk, we create tangible, ground-tested precedents. Now, as you see, our classic Siragoli hub in Western Ghats, it was an abandoned, degraded, facing severe drought. But within 2 years, thanks to my managing trustee, Ashok Kamath, it was completely transformed. How? By radically trusting nature's genetic wealth. We collected so much of leaf litter from the roadsides to blanket the parched earth. We invited the neighboring street cattle to freely graze our fields. And the local farmers literally thought we were cuckoo. But we knew exactly what we were doing. We were sourcing free, abundant, life-giving fertilizers, in the form of cow dung and cow urine. We followed the forest principle because that's the inspiration that we get. Treating the soil like an expectant mother. Feed her rich nutrients, not harsh chemicals. We weren't just building a farm. We were creating and building climate resilience. So when calamity struck, what did we do? The deluges and floods arrived, but our land was prepared. Ashok's foresight had already carved out 150 rainwater harvesting pits, recharged a dying underground spring, and engineered a massive 50 by 30 meter pond with overflow channels linked to the Linganmakki backwaters. When the surrounding valley was devastated, the neighboring farmers tragically lost everything to deluge, and our fields stood resilient. Our aquifers refilled, our topsoil remained intact, and our paddy crops stood tall and strong. The astonished farmers who once doubted us immediately came to learn. Today, those surrounding communities have followed suit, replicating our models. This is how we ensure a sustainable future. It isn't found in a signed treaty or a corporate boardroom. It is lived on the ground through autonomous, practical, and collective climate action. If we secure the soil, we secure the farmers, and we secure our health. Thank you, Swati.
Yes, so rightly said, Sangeeta. As we move on to some of the solutions that we can explore, I want to ask Mark, how can we ensure that technology acts as an enabler rather than a barrier for organizations working within the impact sector?
Yeah, I mean, ensure is a strong word, but I think I follow uh, the sentiment about don't wait for policy and become part of the solution yourselves. I definitely, the last week or a few days ago, we were talking about ESG reporting and how I'm representing an Australian company that has some very good technology to do that. Whether it ensures good behavior, it actually allows for a circular regenerative financial solution that incentivizes better and better reporting behavior and telling the truth. So Australia is heading towards an auditing mandate. So a lot of the conversations with large Indonesian corporates were, we don't have that. It's not mandatory. And I was basically saying to them, you need to be brave in this moment. You have a chance to be bold and to do something ahead of when someone tells you to do it. Why wouldn't you? And talk about telling the truth with your whole supply chain. I think this systems thinking that we brought up a few times is really critical for this. And your supply chain doesn't stop when it lands on your front door. You know, the responsibility that you have for that banana goes way back to when they cleared the soil for the banana plantation, right? So
Sure.
that whole concept of corporate responsibility and CSR, I think I was around and started to really get a sense of changing the world when CSR and ESG has been so, I'm going to be politically incorrect and say baloney, just lip service to the greenwashing. Yet we rose and created a greenwashing industry. So I think technology is the kind of the unthinking arbiter of what actually happened. And I think that we have an ability to tell the truth and to not just have humans making assumptions and writing things on paper and have flowing systems that prove to everyone, be a good actor, tell the truth, and I'm just happy to be building those kinds of systems and not the obfuscating and churning money ones.
Yeah, and so while technology can empower communities, so can something far more fundamental, the ownership of resources, knowledge, and livelihoods. And nobody knows that better than Sangeeta. So, how does a farmer saving his or her own seed shift the power balance from global corporations back to local communities?
Well, I look at it this way that, our farmers, in fact, when we look at seed saving is basically is an act of defiance. The moment a farmer saves his or her own seed, the chains of corporate dependency are completely broken. They are no longer forced to buy expensive, sterile, patented seeds every single season, along with toxic chemical cocktails required to grow them. A seed-saving farmer reclaims absolute sovereignty. We don't just advocate this at Annadana, but we provide them grassroots solutions because we reskill farmers to become researchers, seed savers, and breeders. By putting the community seed bank at the core of agriculture models, farmers have increased their yields up by 40% and their incomes by at least 50%. We have living testimonies of this milestone. Take Amrit Singh, as you see in the picture, from Barnala, Punjab. He's a proud custodian of Annadana's seed legacy, who's replicated our food forest model in 15 acres. His farm now is a powerful knowledge hub, training hundreds of farmers across North India to break free from corporate chains. Now, the most exciting and, if I can say, heartening news that I've heard is that now there will be 12 seed banks across Punjab. And this is created by empowered progressive farmers who have understood the protocols of seed saving to become both seed and food autonomous. By our impact, we reach further. Northeast, we initiated a vital food security project with visionary officers at the Resource Development Center in Meghalaya. Despite the challenges of long distance, undulated land, long distance hand-holding, our strict protocols in seed saving, soil fertility, we are so delighted that today we receive an annual seed catalog, Swati, and I just can't tell you how heartening it is that the indigenous seeds of that region are safeguarded by these master trainers who are now the farmer educators who are running across, creating rippling impacts by running capacity building clusters and passing on Annadana's time-tested techniques across the region. When a farmer saves seeds, the entire economics of a village changes. Wealth stops leaking out of multinational corporations and stays within the rural community. Communities secure their own food supply, protect their indigenous diversity, and insulate themselves from the global market shocks. By holding on to the seed, the beautiful part is the farmer holds on to the steering wheel of the entire food system. It shifts power directly out of the corporation boardrooms and puts it right where it belongs, in the weathered hands of the community that feeds the world, is all I can say. I love it.
Nandita, your joy and passion is palpable. We can almost feel it here. And it is very inspiring to see empowerment at the farm level. But I'm sure this empowerment can and must be supported by innovations that make food production more sustainable and resilient. And so I'd like Harish to weigh in on what are some of the evolving technologies that address sustainable food production and what are some of the challenges.
Yeah, there are quite a lot actually. So, but I would just sort of, try and keep it as minimal and as easily as understood by everyone in the call. Being a manufacturing and being an engineer, I would always attribute most of it to Industry 4.0, which is basically the industrial revolution seasons that we have, right? For example, we can talk about drones are used extensively in agriculture and aqua farming for tracking and collecting data, and sometimes even in delivering some stuff or maybe spraying stuff. The latest project, I haven't heard about this one until now, is that what I'm advising is using a floating robo in seeding, planting, spreading, spraying fertilizer across flooded paddy fields without sinking. Another project that's dear to me, and I have worked on this area of control environment agriculture, actually, and that definitely helps in terms of not using pesticides at all. There's a fabulous control of atmosphere and a fabulous amount of nutrient introduction based on the level depleted on the circulated water. And they have significant amount of data collected and clearly looking at very optimal, designing at optimal farming conditions with our yield. So they use a lot of data and big data and economic and do that. We see a significant rise in the cold chain technologies actually to ensure food safety, which is actually also will reduce food wastages, will also help us to sort of retain the nutritional value of the food. Blockchain is used extensively to track traceability, and that's critical in the food industry as well. Warehouse automation, I don't even have to mention, most of you know today that, it's probably unmanned in most parts of the world, using computers and softwares and also robots completely manning the warehouses. And we definitely know about the food service apps that we use for delivery at our homes, and more importantly, you will also see that there is significant amount of apps that's coming out in the ecosystem, connecting the restaurants and food manufacturing or food production locations with NGOs as well as the needy. So there's significant amount of those apps happening so that people could collect the food that's probably at the end of the day, which is not sold and which is still in a good, safe to consume and good quality, are distributed to the people who are needy actually. So that's quite a number of technological intervention happening there as well in that. And one of the most contentious subjects, animal protein, as you have heard, and as you will probably be debating mostly with your friends and family. And clearly, it's one of the highly environmentally sort of not so friendly, eating up water as well as arable land. We also see a lot of development in terms of alternate protein sources. There are plant-based protein that you can see. There is precision fermentation. We can also see cellular agriculture, otherwise for a layman, it's called the lab-grown meat. We also see the application of insect proteins happening, and those proteins are actually basically used for sort of supplementing the protein that's used for animals or in animal feed, essentially. So, and then I also want to touch base on the upscaling part, the valorization, and basically you will see that we talked about the banana, and if there are now clearly there are technologies available. So how can exactly like how you buy a fruit and you see that it's not good and I'm not going to use it, or maybe the shops will have a collection of fruits which are not good looking. What can they do is probably give it to a company who are actually making jams or juices or any kind of a syrup or sauces or anything. So I think that work is also happening a lot, unlike in the past. Food waste is also getting valorized. Food waste is valorized into multiple feedstock, as I would call. One, it's made useful proteins actually extracted from food waste going into aqua feed as well as animal feed. And you can also see that food waste becomes a source of energy for us, creating methane and then using that gas probably to create more energy. And you also see the use of the treated material being used as a biofertilizer extensively in the gardening as well as in most of the fields that we come across, right? While we say there are, we say all these things, we also know that there's a significant amount of challenges that we're having these technologies that we're seeing. Clearly, one that I see personally that I've seen is in scaling up some of the technologies. That's very, very, very significant amount of cost is required, but it's still not scalable. They don't hit the economies of scale that we're talking about in terms of make it more implementable, more adaptable. R&D time and cost, if you look at the graph of R&D time and cost, that's significant. Again, I talked about unit economics. The ROI on short term is not so good looking in most of these projects, and long term they are. And so there is obviously rejections, objections coming in terms of adoption. Regulation, I still feel there is not a level playing field in most cases, especially people who are making sustainable food do not have a support that's required. Regulatory said that they can charge a premium, and they are, but I think there's no regulation probably supporting with that, or maybe there isn't anybody offtake that's probably supporting and doing that I'm talking from a governmental perspective, or creating the entire ecosystem of business. And in some cases, you also find when you talk about alternate protein and stuff, we do have issues a bit with maintaining the original taste, the mouthfeel, and other health concerns, maybe using a lot of other ingredients. And lastly, but not the least, the reluctance in adoption owing to loss of jobs and employment by people as well, right? So I think, it's just a list of things I know. And clearly everything is relevant what is relevant to the most of the manufacturing industries can also be employed here. There are very specific applications that also I mentioned here, which I think is quite useful. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, so I can see also, Harish, that technology is only one part of the solution. And the larger challenge is redesigning systems so that they can restore rather than deplete natural resources. And I'd like to get Afra in on this. Afra, you have worked on regenerative agriculture and building agri-food networks. How can industry shift from a waste management mindset to a regenerative and circular economy approach that creates value while restoring natural systems?
Harish mentioned a lot of points, that really resonated with me. The first shift, to be honest, is actually a mindset shift. We need to stop asking, how do you dispose waste, and start asking, how do we design systems where waste doesn't exist? Because we can valorize all type of organic waste, honestly. So back then, in agriculture, around 100 years ago, we used to have biofertilizers. That was the main mode. Before all this NPK existed, and we're putting all these pesticides and herbicides and really spoiling and degrading the soils. We used to have natural, methods of farming. Yeah. So nature actually has already solved this problem. One organism's waste is actually another organism's resource. So that's precisely the essence of circular economy. And a lot of people are misunderstanding this definition of circular economy. Yeah, so we need to learn from this principle. So across my work, I've seen how you can valorize organic waste. So Harish is extremely right on this. We have a lot of technologies, a lot of startups, which have done R&D across 10, 20, 30 years on valorizing this using fermentation and bacterial photosynthesis on these organic waste. And then these can become actually topsoil, and some startups are using biologicals to actually valorize these organic waste and become biofertilizers as well. So we need to focus on restoring soil health, improve productivity, and reduce pollution by seeing value in the waste that we have. To be fair, are they waste? In my opinion, that is gold. If you know how to use it, those things are better than any products that you can design, because where else can you find free things? You're disposing, a company is disposing certain things because you can't find value. To be fair, someone else has find the value. We just need to connect the systems that Mark spoke about. We need to take the risk. We need to try out new things. There's a lot of stuff that's out in the market. And in these companies that I worked with, they are my clients. For example, in India, ITC, that I worked with. So we were trying out products like biocatalyst on a range of crops. So we tried out on tobacco, which is one of their key crop, and we tried out on wheat, we tried out on chilies, and you can see some of the pictures that I have as well. We can really increase productivity and yield, in a natural way. So one of the farmers asked me, how come, Afra, you didn't tell me that this product works really well? Then I told him, you could have applied it in both your land and your land and in someone else's land, because he thought this product that I sold to him didn't work so well. So he put it into another people's land, which is the tested plot, and then in his control plot, which is his own land, he put all the conventional fertilizer regimen. So and then when I went to view the test results and see the productivity and all that stuff, and I saw, and then he told me, you should have told me this before. Now someone else's soil is better, and then my soil is not so good. Then I was telling him, it's not too late. You can try out in the next crop cycle. So I've spent a surprising amount, and then of my time, like convincing all these corporates and institutions and large agri producers that waste isn't waste. You can use all your manure and turn it into topsoil. Like you use the organic waste and food waste and turn it into liquid fertilizer that increases nutrient cycling in the soil. And then my friends and my peers think that I'm a little bit crazy. Talking about manure, food waste, and wastewater can become irrigation water using biologicals. So textile waste, can become actual clothes that walk on runways. So we need to see opportunity, yeah, where people don't want to smell, they don't want to see so much waste, and find some landfill to dispose of things. And we need to see where others don't want to smell and see. So I feel this is where the strategy shift needs to come from.
And Afra, I think if your young voice can shout this loud, there is hope for the future generation. So I want to bring...
We have to work together. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead, Swati.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, Vaishnavi, we will also agree that the principles of regeneration are not just limited to agriculture. I think they're relevant in the way we build our infrastructure. So I want to ask her, what are some examples of good sustainable construction practices, Vaishnavi, that balance growth with environmental responsibility?
Fortunately, in India, and also out of India, I can see a large number of architects who have realized and working towards sustainability. And they have really, to begin with, I can just give you first examples, which I have mentioned here. This architect, Vinu Daniel from South India, and his work is so marvelous. Amazing body of work he has, and he used natural materials altogether. And I think the soil, all these people, the soil that I can connect with Afra when we talk about soil, and also Sangeeta, because this soil they don't import from anywhere. They don't take it from anywhere. The soil is used from the land itself where the project belongs. Sometimes, the excavation which happens for the built form, so that the soil is derived from the excavation and also from the surrounding areas only. And any local material is procured. That means maybe the radius of 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers. So this is how the procurement happens. That is why many times the material or let us say, the openings and the windows are reclaimed kind of windows from some other structures, old structures and all. So this is how balance is created in their projects. So the Vinu Daniel project is a house, but look at the brickwork see the aesthetics part of it as well, just merely using natural materials and adding value to it. So now this is the value addition, and how ample amount of light, natural ventilation, and all the aspects which are required for a good, comfortable living are all present in this work. And all other works also. Then if you can see the left-hand side corner, it's from architect Eugene Pandala. Look, again, this is a house, but so the aesthetics part of it, the kind of indoor-outdoor, there is seamless indoor-outdoor here, and it is corresponding to, the outside is responding to the form which is already taken by the mud work, which is, or adobe work, which has been done there. So everything belongs there. Another thing I want to talk about is the architect Anupama Kundu, the third image second image from the left and bottom. It's her house, I think. And look at the material palette here. So the roof also, everything is load bearing in all these structures. There is no RCC work done at all anywhere. So everything is load bearing, and everything is again raw. There is there is nothing done to hide anything. There's nothing done to escape from something. It is all there. So it's a raw thing, kind of like architecture, which belongs to the site. So it is all contextual, and then which I talked about earlier, the ecology, geography, everything, because this is in I think in tropical area. where you require natural ventilation continuously. Otherwise, moisture doesn't allow you to, stay at comfort levels. So the moisture has been, taken down, and ventilation is induced inside. All these things play on the, quality of life here. So merely going sustainable but giving added value to it and giving also the aesthetical part of it is also playing a major role here. So there are many. I could only provide all 4 to 5 pictures, but there are hundreds of architects who are doing great job, at least in India and all over the world as well. Now the third picture depicts one project which is designed by architect Ashok Lal, and this project is very interesting. It is, the name of the project is Butterflies Resilience Center, which is a temporary home for street children. Now here, these children are rescued also many times, and they have got a home of their own. So the here the question here is ki, what do you call as, ownership, and what do you call as a sense of belonging? These two things are different. And when you call a temporary home, even though the child may leave this home, but it will give the sense of belonging to the child. That means the child can come back again. Okay, though the child does not have ownership of that house. So the design of this house is such a, because see here, what has been incorporated is the economy part of it, because the entire structure is made out of the excavation soil which was, taken out, and the walling material, or the, let us say, load bearing material, is entirely made out of that soil. The then courtyards are designed inside to give that traditional kind of, that it's a DNA in our veins. Like courtyard is like Indian architecture is really, it revolves around courtyard. So that planning and those effects in also those, and then the windows are also taken from the reclaimed kind of a structure. So all these things coming together, giving economy, social is a social factor, because it is child friendly and all. It is also, child will actually enjoy the place here, and also it is environmental friendly altogether. So one project can be sustainable in all ways. That is what is proven over here. That is why I have chosen these projects. And the last one I want to explain here, what you see, a low rise or a very low density projects may be possible, but what about high rise structures or multi-storied structures? So here I can give example of a Malaysian architect, architect Ken Young. His philosophy is like, he says ki buildings have to be bioclimatically designed. They have to be ecologically, the architecture has to respond to the ecology, and also it has to come within the building. So that is how it has to be climate responsive as well. All the other buildings also are climate responsive, which I have mentioned here. So what happens here is everything is site contextual. The design will change if the site is changed. So that is why it belongs there. So in this example, he has designed this Minara in Malaysia, and the green, that is the plantation, starts from the ground level and it goes within the building in a helical manner. And so it is a part of the entire build form. So there is no air conditioning. It's an office building. There is no air conditioning here. There is ample amount of daylight which is present here, and as it is a similar climate that we have in Mumbai or in India, tropical climate, again it is responding to that climate and giving comfort levels, higher good comfort levels inside the premises. So it's a very successful project as such. And again, if you look at it is touching very lightly. It does not have the glass curtains and other typical office buildings that we see normally. You go anywhere in the world, you see glass box buildings which are existing, which can be in Mumbai, which can be in Bangalore, which can also happen in Chennai. Anywhere you go, you have similar, typology of those build form, and you realize this is the office building. So that has been, you should, I mean, the We should not be going for a glass box building anytime in India, at least, because it is not responding to our climate and it is creating havoc inside. So this is the answer given to the architectural response to the climate and also to the geography there.
Thank you.
And to end with, I want to, it's already mentioned there. Sorry, someone is, okay. There is this line which I really, appreciate, touch the earth lightly. It is mentioned by architect Glenn Market. And he says because he's a Australian architect, again, devoted himself to the environment and architecture totally. So this is what he wanted to say, and that is what, makes a good architecture ultimately. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vaishnavi. So we are going into round 3, which is, looking at the future. So I'm going to bring Harish in. Harish, how can innovation help address current challenges, which are also opportunities?
I'm glad you asked this question because, again, systems thinking, right? I mean, to a large extent, we already talked about technological intervention or technological enablement in terms of coming into and helping us with sustainable food production. There are various other areas, starting with institutional innovation. What I mean by institutional innovation is actually the network relationship between multiple parties actually existing in the ecosystem. For instance, big companies, small companies, competitors, suppliers, customers, and all sorts of stuff. I mean, collaborating and exploring opportunities together is actually helping a lot. And because they're all looking at the systemic issues rather than looking at own business issues. And there are a lot of ecosystems that are also paving way for open innovation. Open innovation is nothing but you invite other people's innovation into your ecosystem and start distributing it to others and share yours as well. And there's collaboration happening. Public-private partnerships I've already mentioned, and then I want to move on to the social innovation. There is definitely a human-centric approach to generate new ideas in products and businesses, and also in processes, which are basically to meet the social needs, right? And creating new social relationships or collaborations. I have seen a number of community-based projects evolving based on just focused on stakeholder welfare, be it for elderly or challenged individuals or people with specific needs. We can also see the evolution of other community projects. Probably I'm going to answer this a little bit more in detail when Sangeeta's, my discussion with Sangeeta on this topic. We'll probably be talking about it if we get time. That's on the societal area, and from the government area, I would say there's a lot of policies that's coming in and actually supporting. I don't know, it's not enough, I know, but it's still happening. Having created the negative externalities as the current agriculture practices, somebody had actually put a question in the chat asking how we're going to feed the 1 billion plus people in India when a lot of people are moving away from actually arable land. And I think the reason we can see the current agricultural practices are actually good. They are to increase productivity. I'm taking the risk of getting Sangeeta's flack on this one, but I'm still saying that industrialization is required to meet the growing demand of food. I'm not disagreeing with what you're doing, but I'm just trying to say that without that, we will have a challenge in meeting the demands that we're talking about. With respectfully, I'm saying this. Because we won't be able to meet. Like I think it's a true fact that a lot of farmers are moving away. That the government has to come in, help us settle on, bringing more, systems and sort of technology again, put in regulations in terms of taxes. And also help us the depleting natural capital that we're talking about, and I've mentioned a couple of times, number of times. I do agree. We have to strike a balance between what we talked about. I mean, it's a dichotomy, right? I need to produce food. I can't stop producing food, and industrialization is the only way actually I can meet the demand, the growing demand I'm talking about. Okay, so we talk about government again, NGOs, government organizations, they all require financially. You can also see a lot of innovations happening through banks offering sustainable funds, giving preferred loans, giving you reduced cost of capitals. You can see family offices, you can see impact related funds happening in the I think they're all coming together as an innovation area in terms of supporting the entire ecosystem of wanting to create a more sustainable world. I mean, I want to stop here because for want of time, but we are seeing actually it's moving the right direction. I'm very optimistic about it. So thank you.
And also, many of these opportunities emerge from an urgent need to build resilience, for the future. So, Afra, I want to ask you, with increasing pressure of climate change and scarcity in resources, population growth, what does resilience look like in food and environmental systems? And what innovations gives you hope for the future?
Perfect. Yeah. So I think this is a very key question that we are approaching. So resilience is more of having the capacity to adapt, recover, and thrive in the face of all the challenges that we're seeing right now. There's this phrase that always comes to my mind. Like if you keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, I feel like that's foolish. Like, yeah. So I think this is where it comes in. So we need to diversify like food production methods, of course, improve, like, Sangeeta spoke about like seed and like soil health. And, you need to reduce like dependency on finite like resources. You need to strengthen local communities, like, yeah, we need to do a lot more work. So for environmental systems, like, you need to restore ecosystems so that they can withstand better climate shocks. So right now we can see a global rise in temperature. So there's a range of reasons why that's happening, and it's going to get worse by 2000. So we need to do a lot of systematic changes across international collaborative like methods, and we need to find a way to work together instead of just our own food security, our own resources. But to be fair, this is Earth's resource, and that's why we're here, talking about stewardship. Yeah, it's very much important that we're borrowing it from future, so we need to make sure that we're safeguarding these non-renewable resources, to be honest. So what gives me hope is a range of innovations. Harish mentioned that, Mark mentioned that. We see a lot of collaborations that are emerging in the world. So within public-private, within government, we see like nature-based solutions. We see youth-led initiatives. There's a lot of hackathons going on. We have the World Food Forum. You have the UNEP. Like, you have a lot of international organizations that are supporting like these solutions that are really needed for our climate right now. So we see people rethinking how we produce, how we consume, and we manage these resources. So we have these solutions. So the challenge is scaling them with urgency and purpose. And we are actually quite resilient. Humans are quite resilient. The nature is actually quite resilient as well. But at the same time, we humans, like, we panic when the Wi-Fi goes down for 5 minutes. I feel like there are lessons there. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking of resilience and resources, I think this is a time to bring Sangeeta in and ask that if Earth is our sacred mother, as Vedic wisdom suggests, what does a right relationship with the land look like for a modern consumer who may have never been to a farm?
A right relationship with the land begins right at your plate. From the urban consumer, every single meal is an act of governance. You are either voting for a centralized chemical-intense food system, or you're voting for a decentralized, regenerative, chemical-free future with your health looked after. You don't need to hold a plow to be connected to the soil. You just need to develop the curiosity and the willpower to ask, where does my food come from? When consumers stop viewing food as a mere supermarket commodity and start viewing it as a direct relationship to their health of their family, the farmer and earth, the entire paradigm shifts. True sustainability isn't an elite lifestyle choice. It is an everyday practice of biological citizenship. Fundamentally, we must demand for chemical-free food. Now, we directly motivate farmers to transit from chemicals. And then when I have a lot of people asking me, is it authentic? Why is it so expensive? My answer is, why do we never question the safety of the processed junk food. We blindly buy products laced with synthetic additives and emulsifiers. Yet we cross-examine the humble farmer trying to restore the earth. Now, let me tell you that not all farmers have been they have been, trained during the Green Revolution time to be able to kind of, think that high-yielding varieties bring profits. But at what cost? You have actually depleted the soil of all minerals. Your health is at stake. Look at the Cancer Express that runs from Bhatinda in Punjab to Jaipur. When our groundwater tables are leached with lindane, cancer is bound to rise. Those people who board the train, I stand there watching. There's a no point return. When farmers are transiting from chemical practices, we must incentivize them as it has done in Jaivik Society in 2006 or 2007. The question to ask is, how can we afford to not eat healthy at the high cost of being ill? When the solutions are right in front of us, encourage progressive farmers like Ashwath in Malaysia. Now, there are lots of enterprising progressive farmers across India who I love visiting their markets. And these stores support them. You don't need a farm to make a difference. Step up, seek out these local hubs, support them, invest your money for ethical values. When consumers actively participate or partner with organic farmers, and organic is such a fad, to me, it's quite a fad because they are chemical-free farmers. We bypass corporate monopolies entirely, ensuring that both the health of our families, the wealth of our rural communities remain deeply protected and rooted. That's it. That's
Taking Sangeeta's message, I want to ask Vaishnavi, how can we ensure that our youth are, educated about these problems and about overdevelopment, right? And how can they be given a sense of responsibility and stewardship about the earth?
Yeah. While, with my students, I had taken them to this project, which was in Dahanu. And this was actually a project of a community. He calls himself a community architect. And we went, all my students, we all went and stayed in his eco-friendly house. You won't believe it is right very near to Mumbai, but yet he has designed it in such a way that it was actually, of course, as an architect, he had played his role, building a very kind of his own ideas had taken place there, but still it was, the surrounding tribals and existing villagers, they never thought his house was something which is coming from this city. So this is what we were building here. He had started this toilet block. This is the small toilet block here, and which was to be naturally ventilated. And our students, this is the cob work. Students were handling the mud, they lime, mud, all the natural materials there, and how the cops need not be kept in, they had to be thrown to the person, so that the person, it's a teamwork. So this particular project, the students enjoyed so much, and it has been ingrained on their minds. Why I'm showing you these photos, because as you asked about the future generation, I think that has been the pattern has been handed over to them now. They can take it ahead, and basically not only this, as I told you, ki in the attempt or during our events and seminars, we found, and we also reach out to the children. We had done one butterfly session with the children to make aware. It was a big kind of a entire day event where we called upon parents and children, and a lot of information was, with various methods was given to the children, and they enjoyed it so much. And day by day we are realizing the young generation is accepting and they really enjoy these things hands on. So I have high hopes for the younger generation, and they will take it ahead. Only that we have to guide them with the mentoring part, because as you know, the technology and the social media is taking over their minds. But once you make them, do this hands-on work, they definitely. I have seen people, students, when they one boy I saw, I had just been to Dehradun and been to Kanatal. There was one boy who was finding bugs, okay, below the rocks, small rocks, and he was, trying to identify them. And his father was with him. He was such a thing, I think, a 10 years old boy. So I asked him, "How do you know?" He said, "No, I know." So I think this stewardship is not that they will not accept it. They will take it ahead. Only that direction has to be given by us or whoever is interested. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. That was a really positive note. But no discussion is complete without talking about AI. And so I'm going to ask Mark about what is AI doing in this space and how is it going to affect the future of technologies working in this space?
Um, Working in this space, I think I do have a few kind of examples of things, but I do want to start by saying I think there's a lot of hype around AI, and please don't think it's got all the answers or anything like that. It's a language model. It's being trained, and what we train it, it produces extra stuff for us. I think it's a great automation tool. If this, then that, that kind of flow for our systems conversations, our data flow conversations about the truth. It can help with taking some of the I call it manual labor, like filling things, entering data and things like that. It really helps with eliminating a lot of that. Um, yeah, again, I'm going to call it manual work, but playing in the mud is much cooler manual work. So I think satellite imagery is coming in very, very accurate down to the, in the hectare kind of thing, down to a couple of inches. You can really have the AI analyze that, for water flow mechanisms and sort of IoT but automated control, monitoring, reporting, and verification in the ESG world. There's a lot of things going on with the kind of the training the intelligence to support the human decision making and the policy flow. I also think like we could go back to the seeds idea is that the AI is very nascent right now. We need to feed it the right things. We need to treat it really responsibly. And what I'm building with AI is much more around sort of business solutions, but at the heart of it, it's about getting that exponential reach. You're going to need some advanced technologies, and yeah, it's not the answer, but I think it's going to be fun to explore these ideas and wrap it into something that supports our decisions, but doesn't take them over. A bit of a
Thank you. Thank you.
cautionary answer, I know, but I do want to decrease the hype.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Mansi, I'm wondering if we could get a few questions from the audience. You have some in the chat. Would you like to call them out?
Yeah, I will just call out on the people and they can ask the question. So I think Mr. Colin had a question about AI and sustainability. So, Colin, if you want to just unmute and ask, you can go ahead.
Let's see.
Uh, Okay, in the interest of time, I can just ask his question. So his question is, he would like to understand on the concept of sustainable AI and how he can cross skill on system thinking concepts to gain a better understanding of sustainable AI.
Hmm. I think it also hits Jaya's question, if I'm okay to answer.
Yeah.
Swati. The Jaya's question as well, because the projections, I think, of energy and resource use by data centers is just what I said, complete hype. I think they're building it on assumptions in the last 12 months of AI growth, that that's going to go on forever. And it's extremely unlikely to happen that way. There's a few different concepts around that I have, but definitely they're moving AIs more locally, either built into the hardware of your phone or your laptop. That will do 80-90% of what the people need. And the cloudy, the data center AI models will be only used for extreme, what do you call it? Like just very, very niche intelligent system. So I think the projections, I'm not telling everybody they're wrong, like NVIDIA and IBM and things like that about what they should do, but I think the data center will cool down the hype around data center rollout. And also I was working with somebody on this week in Jakarta about off-grid data centers. So data centers that are connected via satellites and things, but don't draw any power from the surrounding or the grid. So there is lots of talk about it. It's not, nothing's in fruition yet, but AI is like what, 70 years old, or 30 years old, but from the 70s and stuff. But yeah, I think we've got time to figure out the DC side of things.
Thank you.
Also, I don't think there's such a thing as sustainable AI yet, but I'm working on it.
But Mark, we are drying up our Earth's aquifers just to compute algorithms that fast-track patented sterile seeds and automate chemical warfare on the soil. So we are literally engineering our own extinction.
Yeah,
and this is to quote the World Economic Forum. It should serve a living system, Mark, not replace it. An artificial algorithm cannot override the ancient, timeless rhythm of the soil. It cannot regenerate a dead field. Only biology can do that. So we should technology can be used to protect our indigenous genetic wealth rather than draining our earth to build a digital simulation of it. My understanding.
Awesome. No, I'm not advocating for any kind of takeover or replacement. I think the digital twinning is it's not taking it over, it's reflecting what's happening in reality with different sensors and things. Those are positive things instead of just, sort of closing our eyes and hoping that the soil's going to be good next year. And also floodplain and redirection of reduction in harmful natural disasters and things like that. Modeling those things such that we can redesign the cities to avoid it, or cities and ecosystems. I like Vaishnavi's ecosystem conversation too.
Yeah.
I like the word digital twinning, where it reflects what's happening in reality. Yes. I'm going to ask a question that Jaya had posted in the pre-session questions that we had asked for. And Harish, I'm wondering if you can take that. How does one convince a capitalist on the need for sustainability, especially one who's looking at short-term profit?
That has always been a challenge, but thankfully, as you look at it, and I'm sure my respected fellow panelists would agree with me that the world is changing, the way people thinking about, sustainability is changing. There are governments, there are communities, there are societies, there are organizations, there are individuals who are actually worried about the future, right? They're worried about our existence itself, and so. There are some people, I wouldn't say all, who are willing to take a short-term hit, but thinking about the long-term prospects of that return. are still committed to providing the capital for the growth on a sustainable area, sustainability related projects. And I've come across many. I work with an agri-foods business, like I said, and every time, and they do a lot to the community. They do, and they're not doing industrialized farming, by the way, Sangeeta. They are doing farming in the normal way, but of course, they definitely use some productivity methods and measures which are really not harming the soil or taking away the arable land and stuff like that. But every principle is involved in that. Every stakeholder is involved in terms of providing capital for those activities. Are all impact-driven funds. They're all organizations coming at, and there are also a group of individuals who are actually related to this. So I'm very optimistic. There are a lot of people, actually, a lot of organizations and NGOs definitely supporting the initiatives that we talk about as sustainability.
Thank you,
Okay.
Harish. Mansi, in the interest of time, shall we take one last question from the chat?
Sure. Yeah, no, just I think one question that we'd missed.
Yeah.
So Sunita had asked, debate on localization and small is beautiful versus large scaling cookie cutter approach.
I can answer that, actually give my comments rather than answering that, because when you look at the evolution of sustainability initiatives, one of the things that's really happening is try and see small scale localization, which is extremely true, because we are trying to, first of all, from a need perspective, from a want perspective as well, people and the governments as well as the communities have realized that having to rely on external sources, which are far across the geographies, are too risky, especially when the days when you had COVID and especially when transportation was significantly affected and impacted. Most of the people, most of the communities and governments have realized that they should have self-sustenance. And then I can, for example, quote the Singapore government's initiative to call 30% of all production food produce to be done locally by 2030. And I think that's happening across the countries everywhere. So it is good. It is recommended by everyone, and it is doable as well, actually, yeah.
Can I answer that question too, please? Because I feel that we need to understand that agriculture is not a factory line. So even it is a living soil web. When chemical farming disrupts one link to maximize a short-term yield, the entire ecosystem collapses. The war on nature backfires. Now, we treat the earth like a machine with isolated parts operating in rigid corporate industrial silos, as even Afra said. Leaders make decisions in vacuums, ignoring the fact that we need to be living in coexistence, moving from a mindset of managing and fighting and to land ourselves to radically coexisting. Our agroecology hubs can prove that small is beautiful. It can be scalable, as seen in all of Annadana's models, that these models capture one thing, and that is waste. As Afra said, that waste does not exist. A fallen leaf isn't garbage to be burned. The nutrients that feed the soil for the next season's growth is called the zero waste loop. So ecological intelligence is very required and necessary in industry and in businesses. And the waste suddenly transforms into a valuable cost-saving raw material, is all I can say.
On that note, and in closing, this evening we've heard about systems thinking, regenerative agriculture, sustainable technology, responsible development, innovation, and the wisdom of living in harmony with nature. While the solutions may differ, a common thread runs through all of them, and that is stewardship and our accountability and responsibility towards the environment. The future is not something we inherit from previous generations. I love this sentence. It is something we borrow from those yet to come.
True.
And so we have to take care of it.
So true.
I want to thank all the panelists here for joining us in this important conversation. You have been so gracious in accepting the invitation and being here for these 2 hours. I also want to thank the audience that has been with us over 50 Curiosity Talks and the past 2 hours
True.
and
True, true, true.
supported us and helped us grow. In closing, thanks to Mansi. Without her, I wouldn't have been able to put this together, as well as Bhavna and Nihal, the team who have done all the work.
Thank you, Nihal. Thank you, Mansi.
So thank you everyone for this wonderful session. And I hope we meet again in some future conversations. From Mansi and I, this is an open invitation. Please come to Bangalore. Sangeeta is also here. And all of us can have a picnic at her farm.
Absolutely. Afra, Mark, Harish, Vaishnavi, let me know in advance because I'm always on the road. Safeguarding the diversity. Oh my God, the seed is too precious.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Harish.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Combo.